Hello, and thank you for watching this ICMI video podcast featuring the DePaul University Central Contact Center. This video podcast presents a case study of how DePaul University initiated and evolved its Central Contact Center. I am pleased to introduce Susan Lee, Associate Vice President of Enrollment Management and Marketing and Associate Professor, Liberal Arts and Sciences, who will share the university's fascinating story.
Thank you, and hello. To introduce DePaul, located in urban Chicago, DePaul is the largest Catholic and the 9th largest private university in the United States. We have a very diverse population of 26,000 students, about 65% of which are undergraduates and 35% of which are first generation attending college. Good service is a necessity for all students, but students and families that are attending a university for the first time may need special attention. To ensure better service, we developed DePaul Central, an integration of our financial aid, student accounts, and student record offices into a one-stop shop. 2 years later, due to the success of the first DePaul Central office, we opened a second location, this time in the Loop, which is the home of our second urban campus. Now, this project began after a comprehensive student survey in autumn 2005. Students wanted to be able to go to one place to get critical business done. They resented being bounced between offices to accomplish what seemed like one task to them. Now, we saw this not only as a challenge, but as an institutional opportunity to improve the way we delivered student service. A detail that did not go unnoticed from the survey was that students didn't want to be placed on hold when calling, or made to wait when standing at a front desk while staff answered a phone. We knew we had to improve the phone situation as soon as we could, but exactly how to do that was the question. If you look at this timeline, you observe that the piece that took us the longest to achieve was actually the telephony transition. Integrating the phones across offices took 5 years compared to the first office location, which opened 6 months after gathering the student experience data. Originally across these 3 offices, there were 8 phone queues, 8 separate numbers for students to remember in order to call, one for each service area on each campus. When we opened the first office in 2006, we believe our success was based on a 2-tiered service model. Students bringing an issue to staff at the front desk, who would handle the issue or have the student meet with an area expert. We wanted to duplicate the success of that structure as we built the contact center, but we needed more information about the nature of the calls in order to convince all parties that that was the right way to go. First thing we did was to implement VoIP, Voice over Internet Protocol, so that we could reduce the number of queues and allow staff to answer from any campus location. In 2006, we received over 154,000 calls a year across these 3 offices. This is what we looked like at the start of the Contact Center research project. We were down to 3 queues with VoIP, but the queues were not integrated yet. The new DePaul Central queue took the student records number, and as you can see, there were many staff now over 3 queues answering many calls, but the workflow still needed improvement. Students were still being bounced between these 3 queues often, duplicating long waits each time in the new queue. At that time, we could not afford speech analytics, so we implemented call recording with call copy to provide call content data, because that was the critical missing piece of information. Why were students calling? It also provided an opportunity to discuss service levels across the queues. The call copy portal, designed to allow managers to perform QA, became our research center. A few agents agreed to help me gather data, and to divide and conquer, we researched random samples of 100 to 250 calls at a time, listening to each call, then using a QA form to capture the call content data. This is a QA form that I created specifically for our research project. You can see at the top of the report 56% of the 173 calls in this particular sample were students asking for simple information, and near the bottom that 57% of the calls were about information that was missing or unclear online. This data gave us a critical snapshot of why our students needed to call us in that particular period and revealed that these calls could be eliminated or easily handled by cross-trained agents. Simple graphic representation like this one powerfully pointed to the potential of a two-tier queue setup with informational calls answered up front by cross-trained agents and only judgment complex calls sent on to the experts, just the same as our in-person service. In 2008, I attended a pre-conference workshop on Contact Center Management Basics with Brad Cleveland at an ICMI conference. Then, in 2009, I attended a 3-day contact center management training with Brad Cleveland in Chicago, where I started to really learn what I didn't know. I used Brad Cleveland's books, which were very helpful, and I bought them for the 6 staff that were then my extended project team. And we started to apply the basic telephony principles to our research. The pooling principle was a key influence in choosing a two-tier setup. We knew that by consolidating resources, with all calls coming into the first queue, we could either handle more calls, or use fewer agents, or give faster and better service. As overachievers at DePaul, we actually made improvement in all 3 of these areas. This was our contact center vision, all calls coming into the DePaul Central queue, inquiries answered or sent on to a second-level expert, and this was our predicted optimum staffing. In 2010, in a series of 5 pilots, first removing staff from the DePaul Central offices to only answer phones, then adding first the student records queue in a second tier, then a few months later the student accounts queue in that second tier, and finally financial aid, by April 2011 we created the 2-tiered phone service. The proof of concept was immediately clear. Now here's October, which is a typically volume month, with over 8,000 calls coming into DePaul Central, with most of the calls being answered up front only. By the way, we implemented a conference transfer, so students listen as an agent explains their issues to an expert if they should have to be transferred. And look at this, the concept also held up when the call volume increased dramatically, like in August, the start of our academic year. Now DePaul Central's volume had increased 294% from the last August, but because the informational calls were so much shorter than expert counseling or troubleshooting, agents were able to handle more calls. Through another lens, we were using considerably fewer staff now overall, and we were deploying them much more efficiently. Now the service workflow and volume was redirected as the pooling principle was truly working. The final frontier, as always, was real estate, but now we had the research evidence in hand that we needed to find the perfect place for the newly formed and successful contact center. This is the DePaul Central Contact Center, fully functional in April 2011. Here we have integrated the phone, plus email and IM chat service channels. Now we still gather copious research data, but we use them for daily operations improvements, such as staffing the queues for better service. Now we still use the call copy recording application, but now for its intended purpose, traditional quality assurance for training and performance. Easy to use, the screen capture in the upper right-hand corner now reveals to us as we listen to a call if an agent knew exactly where the information is housed or if they need more training. Remember, we originally used the quality assurance forms to capture information on call content, But now we report on an agent's performance, evaluation of script adherence, and their training needs. Phone is still the busiest service channel, and we have identified regular peaks and valleys over a year, but the overall call volume has actually decreased due to systemic improvements that surfaced in our integrated customer service environment. Basically, we fix things, and that reduces calls. Customer service is measured in a 3-question phone survey through call copy that an agent can forward a calling customer onto, while Q stats are constantly gathered and compared to last year, this time, to prove success in a different way. Again, graphic representation best reveals the great volume increase coupled with the maintained acceptance rates in our new 2-tiered environment. Even though there is room to improve, Q weights have also now improved across the board with the integration. Using spark lines, we place call volume across the calendar to determine where our monthly volume spikes occur, and then we determine the service event that caused the volume to spike. We instituted a conference transfer, as I mentioned, meaning that the student listens as the agent introduces their issue to an expert, and to perform the conference transfer more smoothly, we use a queue view, which the agents rely on every day to see exactly who is ready in the expert queues. We have finally employed speech analytics from call copy, and their customized Insight toolbar displays the word cloud so the agents can see what the incoming calls are about in the moment. Also displayed in real time are the Q stats for talk time, hold time, presented and handled ratio, and first call resolution, which we define at DePaul as a call that does not need to be transferred at all. More call content detail is available to the agent if they just drill down in the word cloud that is within their toolbar. And we use the delivered reports in the speech analytics application to identify larger service impacts in the student system. How many calls did a new implementation spike on a particular day or in a particular cycle? There is no doubt that once the phone queues were finally integrated and set up in a 2-tiered structure, we finally had eliminated the bounce that students had complained about, and we did it once and for all. Plus, we were finally getting the student to the most appropriate staff with the most appropriate skills to solve their particular issues. This has kept our students and their families, as you can see, very happy. So the reality of the timeline for the contact center reveals that we may have taken a lot longer than we expected to build a new contact center, but we were finally able to collect the data to prove the real need, to provide the true direction for a phased implementation path, and for the success of a 2-tiered service model. And then, after we implemented the contact center, to continue to provide proof of concept about our success. Thank you so much for listening.